Welcome to Church Jams Now, the podcast where three former youth group kids and current music nerds do a deep dive on Christian music from the 90s and 2000s. Although today we're doing something a little bit different. We are continuing our interview series. We're super stoked to... before I say all that, I'll tell you who I am. I'm Kylan Savage, of course, your co-host. With me, as always, is Mr. TJ Smith.
Hey, hey.
And our beautiful producer, Josh.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
Yo.
Are you guys excited to talk to our guest? As if we haven't been talking for 20 minutes before we started this?
Pretend like we're just starting now.
Right. I'm just now getting excited. Before I wasn't, but
you're very
so on it. Yeah.
Guys, we have Jonathan Clark here today.
What's up, Jonathan?
Say hey, Jonathan.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Welcome.
Can I ask TJ? I'm sorry, I just now saw it. I have to interrupt. TJ, the Alabama Shakes in the back behind you. Can I see that? Can you put it up? Is that mobile?
Yeah, it's the vinyl.
Oh my god, dude. Dude, I'm late to the party, man, but I love that record, dude.
How fucking good is that record?
Damn good, man. I love
Yeah,
this
dude, to my detriment, I've probably tried to make the last 15 songs sound like that record. Can't do it.
I get it. Dude, I get it.
Chase that, man.
Yeah.
Chase that for the rest of your life, I say.
Which record is it for our listeners out there?
Sound and color.
Yeah. Sound and color. Thanks, Josh. So for those who may not know, Jonathan Clark, I've known you for a long time, but let's talk about some of your credits. Currently, your main gig is composing for TV, which is super cool. I want to talk about that a little bit. Before that, he worked with Chris Carrabba, Dashboard Confessional, and Twin Forks, and Further Seems Forever. And before that, when I first met him, he was a rapper going by the name Crudbot.
Ooh.
Oh, I remember those. I forgot about all that.
That's a deep cut reference, Kylan.
Yeah.
Pretty deep. Like both literally and metaphorically. It's a deep cut to my heart. And yeah.
I don't know, man. I fucking love that Crudbot EP. We don't have to talk about that,
man.
But
you can talk about anything you want, man. I mean, I'm a fucking nerd about all this shit, you know. Whether I like it or not doesn't mean I'm not a nerd, you know.
Dude, well, that's why I wanted to have you on. You've been at the top of my guest list like since we started the podcast. I think the other guys can attest to that. Like from the genesis of the podcast, I was like, hey, if we ever start doing interviews, like we should have Jonathan on. So
yeah, well, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
Boris.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you living? What are you doing?
Man, I'm in Franklin, Tennessee right now, which is maybe like half hour south of Nashville, and just a little suburb. And I work from home, man. I'm in my studio now. This is in my garage. I compose for TV. There's a couple different libraries I work for, and a lot of the stuff is like reality shows, and so it's stuff you've seen on Netflix, like Selling the OC and Queer Eye, How to Build a Sex Room. I got some tunes in there.
Wow, really?
And yeah. So it's cool. So a lot of these shows, they go to a library for a big bulk of music.
Right.
You know?
So how do you? I'm just curious. Like, as someone that works for submitting stuff to like these libraries, do you get do you get notifications when your stuff gets picked up by specific productions, or do you just like stumble on it like watching TV?
It's usually stumbling, man. It's very few. Like with the library stuff, man, it just gets used, and if you're lucky, you hear it. Like if you happen to watch that show. But then you know how your PRO is, like, something that happened 2 years ago, you're just now getting paid for, that kind of thing. So it takes a while to build up that, to where you're getting paid and you weren't just in the dark, But then for some sync stuff, so I work for some other companies too. They actually they have a bid. The company's like, oh, we've offered them a quote or whatever for usage of the song, and but still nobody really gives a shit after that. Nobody's gonna email you and be like, here's your clip, bro. Right. They're exhausted. They're on to the next thing.
I imagine everything's moving so fast that it's not like they're gonna sit down and write you a little personal email.
Yeah. It's great, man. My sister, she watches a lot of these shows, man, and she'll be like, she'll send me like she'll video the TV and like, is this you? And it's like, she's I guess recognizing my voice or something, but I have a lot of instrumental shit too, man. So those are always fun, man. Those are ones where I mean, it could be anything, man. It could be from something that sounds like folk and Americana to like, Bruno Mars, or anywhere in between. It could be anything, so I like that because it's always something different.
Yeah, do you enjoy the variety of it? Like, do you sort of seek out trying to mix it up, like when you're composing, trying to kind of...
Yeah, and I think it's helped with like maybe the hybridization maybe of some genres too, it's because like I love like a distorted 808 as much as I do mandolin, so it's nice to be able to go back and forth. And then, I also like anything that's like, I don't know, 110 to 130 beats per minute either ends up sounding like Billie Jean or You Dropped the Bomb on Me, it's always the same thing. Just like, how many songs can I put fucking Talkbox on, But,
all every of them. Song. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
Every song.
The songs that you're making for those, like, how long are they? Are you doing like full songs or like you shoot for like 45 seconds?
They usually they're like about 2 minutes. And, as far as the form of them, it's also helpful too that like, you got to think like there's an editor going through a huge, library or folder or whatever.
Right.
He's just clicking through, just like we click through playlists, like, bullshit, Sure. So it helps to really just like bang and just start with a chorus. That's the best thing you can do, Yeah. It's just like right out the gate, big chorus, come down for a verse, maybe a pre-chorus or something, and then maybe ramp it up. You could go into a mega chorus after that, or maybe like an EDM style drop chorus into a mega chorus,
This is sounding like Kylan's favorite kind of music to listen to.
Right to the chorus.
It just doesn't waste any time.
Yeah.
Like, get right.
There's like some poll, man, like our statistic or something, and it was more than 50% of like modern songs starting with the chorus, especially like hip hop songs, and because it's the same thing, man. Or the whole shit's the chorus. I mean, think about fucking Gucci Gang or something like that. The whole damn song is the chorus, like.
That's great.
There's a reason why Jonathan Clark is such a big part of my origin story.
Right.
You're like the coolest fucking dude. I'm just like,
You're the coolest fucking dude. Are you kidding?
Oh, this is cute.
The coolest fucking dude.
I like this.
Okay, so let's talk just very, 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 very briefly, because there's so many other much more fascinating things to talk about. But let's talk about our connection a little bit, if that's cool.
Yeah, establish that.
Establish the lore.
I first met you at Ocean's Edge School of Worship, which listeners of this podcast I think will know. I went to. You were my guitar teacher, and you also taught music production. You're the one that introduced me to Ableton Live, which I have since been proselytizing.
You then introduced me to Ableton Live.
Josh,
dude, we're right, man. It's the fucking number one thing, man. That's what everybody is using. You know what I mean? Like,
it's so good
for the most part,
right?
Whatever.
And I done the whole Pro Tools and everything, but I always just like I'm so comfortable with Ableton Live. And the coolest thing I think is right after I graduated, you asked me out on tour, and that was like one of the coolest experiences of my life.
That was a cool experience for me too, man. I had a ton of fun on that, dude. I mean, that's it. Like, I don't know if you can see it. My wife, where is that? Am I pointing to it as yellow on that back door?
Yeah.
She found it somewhere. Like, you know how like you'll have like a big fucking atlas or something and a bunch of posters and shit in it. And
right.
She was like going through it or something, and I was like, oh shit. So I hung it up because us too. We're all pretty like fucking like thin and like gnarly looking. I was like, I can look like that again. Fuck you,
That's so good. Hey, you gotta take a picture of that and send it to me so we can use that to promo. Yeah, dude, that was like I don't know, because I've been playing music, like I did music and stuff in high school, but I just learned a lot just from like hanging out with you, and then like doing that tour was like a real eye-opening experience. The only thing that I regret is that I wasn't 21, so I couldn't drink on that tour. I feel like it would have been a lot more fun.
And Mike did turn 21.
He did, yeah, he did. Yeah. And I was 19, I think.
You get to be the DD the whole tour.
A little baby.
What an honor.
Well, I guess we should explain for the listener. It was called the Handmade Tour, and the whole premise was like the three of us like handmade like our CDs and our merch and like all that kind of stuff, and you just kind of booked it. It was super DIY. But at some point on the tour, we just started calling it the Hand Job Tour. So funny. All right, but who cares? Let's talk about something more interesting. Josh, I know you have some questions. Do you want to ask Jonathan some questions?
I do. I'm curious. So we always talk about your origin stories and like how you grew up and like how you got into music. I don't know if you have like a really cool story or if you just want to like touch on like, did you grow up like listening to Christian music or just kind of whatever? And then how did you find your way into music?
Yeah, well, both my parents are musical. Like, my mom sings and plays piano. I mean, she was never in a band or anything like that, but she's definitely, sings and plays. It was an occurrence. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna have the family reunion.
There you go.
Band. And then my dad played guitar and is definitely kind of like a tech guy. I mean, I remember being a little kid and when I would have like weekend visitation. I mean, sometimes I would be not helping. I'm a little kid, but I'd be, there while everybody's loading in for. There was a band. It's like called beach music. You familiar with that term? That's like a funny one. I don't know, but some Southern shit, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so I was around that at a young age. Sometimes I'd wake up like, they had a 2-bedroom condo and. So the second bedroom for him is obviously the music room. So, but when I was there on the weekend, I'd wake up to him playing like Van Halen or some shit, and there's always music in the house. He always had like a hi-fi. And, a couple of things I remember is, the early CD players, so he kind of got into that, he's just not like full hi-fi nerd, but you know what I mean?
Right.
But wanting to keep up with technology.
Yeah.
But I remember, had Brothers in Arms, that CD. And that was like one of the first recordings that was recorded digitally, but it was also like on a digital tape machine, like a Sony. What is that thing called? 388?
Tascam or
No, it's like the Sony. It's the 33. I don't know. It's whatever Chris Lord mixed from for a long time. But anyway, nah, man. I can still like hear that like now, just that shit loud as hell, like on a Saturday morning, man. Fucking Money for Nothing or something like that. And I still think that's the best opening guitar riff ever. I mean, it's at least top 10. And can we have some kind of top 10s because we're all musicians, right? We got to have some guitar shit, right?
Yeah, dude.
But no, man. But I was exposed to that a lot, and it definitely shaped me. My mom's a fucking wild ass redheaded South Carolina woman with like a turquoise, Monte Carlo, and white leather interior, and fucking 100 miles an hour listening to like Leonard Skinner and shit.
God, you make
like,
so much more sense to me now.
But also too, but my age group, like, I mean, I can still remember. This is just like even before music, just like the influence music. I still remember like, I don't know, fucking 4th grade or 6th grade, something like that. This kid Brian Williams, he had like his headphones on at recess, and he's like, listen to this shit and put it on, and it's fucking Tribe Called Quest scenario. And my little white ass had no idea what was going on. You know what I mean?
You're making even more sense. It's all.
I was like, this is. I was like, this is it. And so, kind of at that point, I found like 90.5 was the college station, and they would always play like hip hop and shit. I mean, college stations are always cool, when radio's a thing, right? And kind of all that stuff was an influence, man. And then I was big into skateboarding for a long time, and one of the guys I skateboarded with, he played guitar. His brother was in a band, and it was like it just kind of put 2 and 2 together for me. Like skateboard culture, and then like music. And I don't know if any of you guys skate, but you watch like skate videos. It's like hip hop song, punk rock song, like a David Bowie song. It's just like this wild blend of shit. It's like playlist generation before playlist generation.
Right.
And so I think that was maybe like the stew, you know what I mean? And then when we got into guitar, man, the first thing we played, there's a kid down the street, Lewis, man, huge best friend for a long time. He played drums, and in 8th grade, I think I've been playing guitar for maybe like a year, and we played Anarchy in the UK at our school's talent show.
Nice.
Yeah, and but there's this other band that, and these guys are, his name's Corey. I'm spacing his last name. He's a recording engineer now too. He was in the other band, and they played About a Girl, Nirvana, and they won. But whatever.
You're not bitter.
You're not still salty about it. Yeah.
No, I'm not salty about it. But anyway, I think at that point, so the guy that got me into it, basically, his name is Brian Connor. He's in a band called Villanova, and he's in South Carolina. His brother, Chris Connor, was in a band called Sourwood Honey, which was a very big regional band, kind of at the time of Hootie and the Blowfish, stuff like that. And, I mean, they were older than us, so they kind of already had, like, a practice space and gear and shit. Right. And so they would let us, jam over there sometimes. But the main thing was Chris gave us a Tascam with the 414, the gray 4-track kind of, tape cassette multi-track recorder. And dude, that kind of started it. So, we're like basically late in high school and, we've got a 4-track and older brothers to buy us beer. Like, life is good,
What an edge. you were like ahead of the curve, man.
I mean, looking back, man, it's weird because I feel like in some ways I was, but there was also kids our age already on Pro Tools at that point in time. You know what I mean? You're talking about 1996, 97, already on Pro Tools, already. I mean, that's so serious. That's like such a jump in capability, But anyway, you just, started recording. And then, man, at some point, 20 or so, man, I got in some serious trouble at a job I was working at, man. I got, I had to spend the night at jail and get put on probation and all kinds of shit. And that just set me off like that kind of, what's the verse? Raise your child in the ways that he will not forget them. What's some shit like that? What is that?
Yeah.
Something like
Raise
that.
your child up in the way he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it.
Yeah. And,
more or less.
Or some shit. I paraphrased everything.
That's a loose translation, yeah.
Yeah. I think some of that in my upbringing, because I had a very religious, zealous kind of aunt when I was real little that stayed with us when my parents were first divorced. So you kind of had mom number 2, pouring some religious honey into you,
Right.
Anyway, man, I just had this whole kind of.
Also, I just have to interrupt. Religious Honey is a great name for a fucking album. That's just such a good name.
Great metaphor,
Dude,
yeah.
I'm sitting down, but put it on your whiteboard. Do it.
Yeah.
Write it.
I need to write that in my notes.
Yeah. No, man, I had started. There was a guy I went to school with, Simeon Cardwell, and he was just just such a gentle, great dude, man. And he was just I think he could kind of just tell shit was going on with me. He started coming over to the house, and but he invited me to church. And man, the first time I ever played at church was a small non-denominational church where they have that singer songwriter guy come in and the church is the backup band, whatever you call that sort of circuit, right? In retrospect, how terrible must that be every time? You know what I mean? That's got to be awful.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough game.
Yeah, dude. Anyway, but and I was there, man, and dude, I was fully into it at that point, man. And to be honest, I was trying to clean my shit up, and there's a parallel between doing drugs and going to a Grateful Dead show or something. You know what I mean? Not the Dead because they were, but Fish or something. That what I'm saying? That's sort of fully. What do you call that?
Yeah, it's a religious
immersive
experience,
immersive.
Yeah. So if you're into that, the transition to Christian music or worship music, maybe more specifically,
right?
It's not that big of a deal,
Right.
So it was easy to kind of go through that, and then I've never been a full schooled theory nerd, but I've definitely always tried to be aware of what chords and music and stuff. So that, and then just kind of having some insight into recording and stuff like that. That just kind of always made me hopefully somewhat valuable in some of those situations. Somebody's a little tech savvy, right? Once I started going to church, that was actually the first time I started writing songs. I felt like I had an outpouring of things to say, and something to sing about more or less. And so I did that, and then not long after that, I met my wife. Not long after that, we moved to Florida, and 26, I'm at Ocean's Edge.
Yeah.
Where are we at in this story? I know we can edit this, but
No, that's a perfect. That gets us up to the speed of what we know. And I do want to, because I had I looked up your Discogs credits and everything like that.
Send me the link, man. I have no idea what that
You don't even know? You're Jonathan Clark, number 6. There's 5 that
there's a lot of those
apparently.
guys,
Yeah, there's a lot.
Funny. A lot of 80s kids named Jonathan for sure.
Possibly, yeah. So I wanted to kind of, because we're going to talk about Further Seems Forever and some Twin Forks and stuff like that.
Josh, can you just ask the first question? Is that what you're doing?
I
just
am.
ask the first question that's on our
Okay.
document that the 3 of us have access to.
Don't be mean, Kylan.
I'm not being mean.
I was leading up to it because this is one of your first credits, and
I'm so excited about it and the way that it's worded. Can you just ask it the way that it is in the document?
Okay, our first thing is walk us through your career. First bullet point: Dwight Yoakam. What? Please explain.
Spit take. No, I have never worked with Dwight Yoakam. That's a different Jonathan
That's a
Clark,
different
man.
Jonathan Clark. Okay,
Yeah.
that's Jonathan Clark 5 or 4.
I fucking wish, though, just for the record.
Right?
I
Yeah.
wish.
Well,
Yeah.
your Discogs biography credits, whatever, look great because you got some like Dwight Yoakam in there. You got like some other. I'll have to look and see. You got some
Somebody
other
got you mixed up
country
with another
stuff.
Jonathan, man.
Okay, I was like,
it happens.
what have you done? I had no idea. Like, how did you get involved in this?
Yeah.
Also, with Dwight Yoakam, what did I make a record when I was like 8 years old? You know what I mean? Like,
He was
Right.
doing stuff in the 90s.
Josh thought we had a huge get. It's like, this dude has worked with Dwight Yoakam. And I didn't
It's about
correct him.
Dwight Yoakam. Well, then you probably okay. So, what is like your first credit that would be on the first correct credit of like something that you worked on? Or put out or
okay,
did?
I have seen some of those Ocean's Edge records that we did for the school. I have seen those show up here or there. You know what I mean? I don't know. So if that's, but as far as like anything that's on a label, like a real, like a real record would be Further Seems Forever.
Okay, yeah.
And,
Tell us
that was
about
Penny
then
Black.
how you got hooked up with Chris.
So when we were working at Ocean's Edge, somehow, okay, so Ryan Alexander, he was hanging out with Steve from Further, and because Further's was all in South Florida at the time,
Right.
and they got to know a guy named David Stone who had a band named Comanche, and so it ended up I met Steve and jammed with Ryan and Steve, and then Steve introduced me to David. And David had a bunch of tracks that he was performing to, like no in-ears or anything, just like computer through like a fucking 15-inch Mackie on stage, just loud as shit, And so we played that gig, and with Steve and Dave was just a front man, is fucking sick. But I think at that point Steve was like, oh, this guy plays guitar, but is also kind of a computer guy, or a recording guy, and so he kind of put two and two together for me on that. And Chris had a warehouse that he was recording at some stuff, and that's where the Further stuff was recorded, and the Twin Forks. He just introduced me, man, and I came by a practice one time because Steve is Steve's a heavy hitter, man, so it's like not uncommon for him to fucking break a stand or a snare or a cymbal or some shit.
Yeah.
And I lived really close to their studio, and so after we met, and then one time he's like, man, do you have I think it was like a snare and a snare stand he needed, and so I brought that over, and hung out a little bit, and then later I Chris and I texted back, and I was still at Calvary, and the guy who had started the record, Mike Fanuel, he had some other stuff going on, and so he kind of called me, and he was like kind of gave me a rundown on the studio, and so we just kind of started working on some stuff. But one of the first things we actually worked on was a cover of that Big Star song, I'm in Love with a Girl. And that was another fun one because I was super into slide at the time, and I could do like that kind of like a solo thing on slide, and because it's kind of folksy and country, that sort of thing. That was a lot of fun. Quick weird note about that: they were using he's on a G5, but they were using some kind of early backup, like auto backup, like what's it called in Mac Automator. You know what I'm talking about?
Time machine or
No, it's pre-time machine, so it's Automator. But you could automate,
Right.
get it. It's like a early scripting kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Chris's brother had set it up for him, and it worked great. But one of us fucked something up, and dude, it was a wrap, man. And so I ended up they had to get the drive fixed and all this shit, and I had to piece this shit in Pro Tools together from just the file of recorded files, which doesn't tell you where on the timeline anything is.
Right.
You got all the fragments of everything, and it's just like putting together a puzzle. And so that was pretty intensive. But I did feel like whatever it's worth. I mean, clearly I have a fucking self-worth issue, but I felt like I got to like prove myself that like, hey, everything not only got fucked up, we put it back together,
Right.
But then I think we started working a little bit on Further because Mike and the band had tracked, I would say, 75% of drums, guitars, bass, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. But the majority of the songs hadn't had the lead vocal cut, and so and some of them weren't written as well, So I was there when Chris was writing a lot of that stuff. Is this an okay timeline? Am I going fast? Slow, or anything like
this
that?
is this is perfect.
Okay.
We're all wrapped with
yes.
with, like
Keep
we're-
going. It's
Yeah.
great.
Like this
Great.
is exactly the kind of shit we just like want to hear about.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. the bones of the record is pretty much recorded, and so we're doing work on vocals, and so a lot of that stuff is Chris writing his lyrics and going in, and every now and then I think with the bed of the track, maybe we shorten the intro or cut a bar here or there or something like that. But you guys also know the music. It's not like they need any help cutting bars or you know what I mean? It's just like the shit's psycho sometimes,
Yeah.
So yeah, we did most of that, and then it kind of came time, and I think that maybe we had 9 tracks, 10 tracks, something like that. And I think the label at the time wanted there's something about like having 12, you know what I mean, or something to make it feel like a little more full length. I think at the time, I forget what the exact number was, but there was one that they're kind of working on, and that's the So Cold song. And so I was fortunate enough to do that from the ground up. And so that's also probably why it's like that
just
song goes on and you're
single.
like, yeah, no, but you're like, that sounds a little different, That was fun, man, because like I said, they had the guts of that song. It was just more or less like engineering and kind of producing on the level, like I said, of like, can we get to this place quicker or something like that. But it was, it's a pretty pop kind of arrangement already. You know what I'm saying? Like the sensibility.
I have a question real quick. So on that record, like how did you go from the guy that brought an extra snare and a snare stand to what you ended up doing on that record? Like just from like hanging out and you're like, hey, I can do this shit, or like tell me about how that happened.
After the snare drum or the come like meet everybody and shake everybody's hand, that kind of thing. Chris had hit me up, and that's when we recorded the Big Star song. It was like, and I also find that kind of a fun way to, have like a first date with a new artist or singer or writer or something. Sometimes it's just to connect over cover material. Nobody's got any skin in the game, like emotionally, like it's not their baby.
It's so neutral. Yeah.
That's smart.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way for, people to meet, and to kind of learn how they're working together. And so we did well like that. And I want to say the first time we recorded that, yeah, okay. So Chris is a fucking student, man. That dude is like, he's a student, man, of stuff, man. He practices, he works, man. He's like, he's kind of like an Olympiad, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
if that's the right word, But I remember at the time he's like he was really getting into fingerstyle guitar, like full on, finger style. And so he had the I'm in Love with a Girl. I think he had that shit tabbed out, like it was like a lead sheet.
Oh, damn.
You know what I mean? And but it was like an exercise for him too. Like he was making it up and learning it, and you know what I mean, like remembering it and everything. Right. And so that was just like no big deal. There's just like the guy that's the sexiest man in America on GQ or whatever the fuck that was, wrote out a chart, and can we record this in a place you've never recorded on? And I'd never used Pro Tools HD. I'd used Pro Tools LE and Ableton and Logic even early on. But learning the routing of that was like insane. No visual communication because, he's like, they had a booth there, but they're not like all real big on like fucking looking at each other, while they're doing their thing, unless they're in the same room, Anyway, yeah, so we recorded that. So I think maybe that was, sort of like, well, this guy can hang. Hopefully that was the impression I gave,
It seems like it.
I guess, man. It was fun.
Like
though,
kind of objectively, based on like what you did after that, I think the answer to that is yes.
Thanks. The funny thing though is I kind of remember. You ever seen one of those memes? It's like when you're interviewing for a job, like you're also interviewing the employer. And that's like a hard thing to get your mind around when you're a younger person, because you're always like scared. Like, I hope I get this fucking job flipping hamburgers, And so, doing that, I think I kind of realized that, like all the stuff, that I'd been working on, it just kind of like prepared me for that moment. And, we just had a good experience. But the main thing that I thought was that when he pulled the chart out, and he was able to say like bar 40, bar, 62, like, or, like when he says like when I'm, sliding from that A minor to G or, what I'm saying? Like it's actual music. It's like, it means a lot that he's like a big, he's a star, right?
Right.
But it also meant a lot that like we could communicate like on a mutual level. Like it wasn't just like, how sometimes studio shit is, man. People are just like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. And you're just like,
yeah, you guys were actually able to communicate.
Yeah, Yeah, so that was really nice. We hit it off. And also too, I mean, I literally lived, I don't know, half a mile from the studio, you know?
Well, that's helpful.
I mean, you've been over to that apartment, I think, when you were you had to have been over.
Yeah.
To my apartment when I lived in OE. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's like right around the corner from that, man. And
Okay.
I remember the call. Do you remember at Calvary when you do like ensembles or like what it was in the gym, and it was in that back room in the gym, right? And we would more often than not walk out the back door. Like if you had to leave, you know, you'd walk out the back door and come around through across the basketball courts to the canteen, all that shit. I remember walking out there, definitely on a Samsung that still had buttons. You know what I mean? Taking the call, and that was Mike. And Mike was giving me the rundown on, you know, the computer setup and the patch bay and stuff like that. And I also think that was probably, looking back on Chris's side or management's side, that was like a preemptive call from a serious tech dude who had made the record. You know what I mean? Like kind of vetting me, you know, to some extent.
I was going to say, I think what you're describing is like an audition. And it's like you said, it's two ways. It's like they're auditioning you, you're auditioning them. And the more you work together, the more you find that you're just a good fit for each other.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, it is,
you made a great record together.
Oh, thanks, man. I think so much of Chris's songwriting, man. That was another thing, too. Is like, you're in the wild and like, sorry, saying the wild. You're out and like maybe there's like a band playing and somebody has like a saxophone, you know what I'm talking about? And you like hear it and you're like, holy shit, a saxophone. You know what I mean? It's like so bizarre. Like it's like, yeah, we don't ever get to hear that tonality or something like that. You know what I mean? And just being around Chris, man, like, you know, his songwriting and his vocals and just like his fucking, I mean, you've heard the guy, you know, like the way he sings and sounds, man. It was just like, it was overwhelming, you know? It was awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so rad. I get it, man. I thought it was so cool when you text me when I was living in Dallas that you're like, hey, I'm playing bass for Dashboard Confessional. You want to come hang out? Because, like, Chris Carrabba is, I would say, 90% of the reason I started writing music in high school.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was super cool.
Dude, can I give you one quick note about that show that you were at?
Yes, please.
So something also is that like, you know, my dad taught me early on how to like intonate a guitar or adjust a truss rod or something like that. So you know, anybody in a band that something's fucked up, I end up trying to fix it for him, right?
Right.
And at that show, Chris broke a string. I can't remember what the interlude is, but I remember taking the guitar to the tent behind stage, like running, changing the string, putting it on, like getting it up, getting it on there and getting it tight, and then realizing most dumbass mistake is like high E string. Had it wound the wrong direction on the
backwards?
peg head. Yeah, backwards.
Oh, no.
And so I had to just like take it and put another one on, and then like and tighten it up and fucking ran back and gave it to Chris, and I can't remember what the thing was, and there was also some issue. There was one song. It was so funny to me because like like Capo 1, if you like Chris and I called it like the devil's capo. Like you fuck up every song if you're Capo 1. Like there's no
right.
Like just don't do it.
Because it's like just off enough
capo.
that like
yeah. So it's the devil's capo. But anyway, there was one song that was devil's capo, and one of us came in, the wrong half step.
Oh, no.
And it was kind of fun because it felt like being part of the family. That it was just like nobody really cared, but it was kind of fun fucking with each other about like who did it, and nobody would fess up. But I don't know if any of us knew, to be honest, either. But
that's so good.
That's great.
Josh, do you want to ask so Jonathan, here's the thing. Josh is our secret weapon on this podcast. He organizes everything. He archives everything. He keeps everything. He is so much more well-equipped to do this than TJ or I. So he came up with some really good questions, and I want to give him another opportunity to ask you a couple more questions, if that's cool.
He's the keeper of the keys.
Really
I love it, man. I love the questions. I'm having a good time.
Good.
Well, and we're all like producers and like songwriters, so I love like hearing about like the extent that you were involved in like the songwriting process, like when you came in, and like one of my questions was like, were you in like a traditional producer role or like kind of a more glorified engineer? But it sounds like you kind of did a little bit of both. kind of stuff because you came in after some of the songs were already done or mostly done, but you got to be there for So Cold.
Well, okay. Well, in short, man, like as far as like the songwriting process for I didn't play any instruments on any of that except for maybe one song, and I think it's called System of Symmetry. Like I did a bunch of programming on that. That's one that like is kind of maybe more front loaded by me. And then but all the other stuff, man, I mean it's like it's not like you wouldn't want to write with Chris, but why would you want to get in his way of, you know what I mean? It's just like it's almost like Van Halen, like, hey, why don't you try this? And like, why would you do that? You know? Yeah.
Just go along for the ride.
Yeah, and as far as the band, it's like, those guys are like, I mean, they're like just kind of, I guess you would almost say like old school, like fucking hardcore kids. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's like that's kind of. A lot of the stuff they were in, like everything post like Big Black or something, I think the best thing you can do in that moment is try to capture everything the right way, you know what I mean? And like kind of let them do their thing. Yeah, they didn't need any help in the the composition of anything. It was just, again, mostly just like, if you were trying to punch something in or, get another take of something or, like even be able to play back different playlists with the band in the room. Do we like this take? Do we like this take instead? Like on drums, something like that.
What would you call the role that you had then for that record? Would you have been like, yeah, I was a producer, or like in how you work with music? What would you call yourself?
I mean, technically I was like a co-producer because like I said, a lot of those tracks, like even like, let's say the vocal's not there. I mean, those guys made decisions on the tone and the arrangement and the, you know what I mean? Like that's like, I wasn't even there for like a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? I was like there after the fact. And then I mixed it. So I guess it's kind of like co-producer and mixer, for that record.
Because you had to kind of land the plane conceptually, right?
Boom.
Like they took off. You had to land it.
Going on the whiteboard. You have to land the plane. That one is good, dude. Yeah, damn.
You put that on your resume.
Up, but
plane lander.
I'm right.
I love that, how you're just like, yeah, I just brought him a snare one day, and the next thing you know, I'm producing, mixing the record.
I'm landing the plane.
I'm landing the pilot. I brought the pilot a bag of peanuts, and next thing you know, I got the sticks.
Like,
that's so
I've
scary.
been telling y'all for years, Jonathan Clark is the coolest fucking dude that I know.
It's true, man.
Well, and the downplay of it, too.
He's
just,
living under the
he's
hype.
like, I don't know. I don't know what you would say I did. I mixed
brought
the
a snare
record.
and then... It's the best, man.
That's great. Well, that's perfect. I'm glad that you said you mixed the record too, because I'm in this Facebook group, and someone was talking about that record because it's coming up on 10 years, and that's kind of why we're talking about it now. And he mentioned, I wanted to get your take on it because he said that the production was a little bit weird on it, and I was like, oh, what about it? Because we're going to be talking to that producer. And he said Chris's voice sounds like it's way over auto-tuned, even though it doesn't really seem to be the case. I'm not sure if it's some odd chorus or something, but it's a weird choice and turned off a lot of fans, but I got over it because the songs are dope. So I was like, do you know like what he was talking about? If that was like...
Yeah, man, and that's been a topic. And I'll tell you what, for me, and this is something to my detriment, is that like, it's not that I intentionally try and change something, but I can be like heavy-handed on stuff. Like I just tend to bring my own, like identity or taste to something, whatever I'm doing. In me thinking, and it probably wasn't even, it wasn't for me to say, but I kind of felt like, okay, this band's coming back and like, this is going to be like hopefully like a big record for them, but also like, it's whatever year it is, and like I want to be like competitive and and kind of unique, and it's like they already had like, some records where it was like, it just sounds like a 4-piece band and no effects, and you know what I mean? It just, it sounds like, and like clearly the songs, I mean, the Bradley is still like the baddest fucking song ever. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of that stuff's like really, really kind of dry and stuff, but, it's almost like, I mean, if you're all mixers and engineers, it's like, like when you start to hear S's and you start fucking with de-essing, it's like, it's all over. It's like all you hear, right?
Yeah.
And so also too, when you're producing music and like, you've been trying to like have a fucking riser or a whip or, a pad underneath a traditional guitar chorus, or it's, you know what I mean? It's like, or fucking kind of extensive modulated, throws on a vocal or something. When you don't hear those, it just sounds like kind of unfinished, And so I think that was maybe a sensibility that I took in. And man, you know, some too is like, I hope I didn't ruin their, you know, legacy for them with that record. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to make something cool and a unique, I'd take a chance maybe, you know? Yeah. Although I probably wasn't my place to say that, you know?
And I'd be curious to know, was there conversation between you and Chris and any of the other folks that were involved on the record about those choices? Like, how much of that back and forth of like, here's a version of a mix, here's a version of a mix was happening during the process?
I mean, we definitely went through revisions, and most of that stuff was like something up or down in a section, you know, like, you know, vocal up, or, you know, Nick's guitar down in this section, or Chad up, or, you know, whatever. So those things happened, but they weren't so production. I think, I mean, if I just have to imagine, I can't really speak for those guys per se, but I think that like every band wants to do something different every time around.
Sure.
The fan base wants the same fucking record. But also, if they get the same record, they're going to shit on it and
they're
say
gonna be pissed. It's like, they haven't changed.
You
can't win.
I'm all for taking a chance, man, you know, and I think those guys were excited about it, and I think the label was excited about it, you know. But, you know, I was like very early in my skills, man. Like, you know, like I'm not going to listen to it. I'll cry, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Like, but that being said, you know, I learned a lot. But I remember when we got it mastered, I do remember an email that I got from the mastering guy. I'm sorry I'm spacing on his name because, you know, everybody's lovely to work with. But he was like, are these songs mixed by different people?
Oh, dang.
And I kind of was like, well, you know what? If you're talking about me and all the other fuckers in my head, like, maybe, you know, like, you know, like maybe it was.
Great response.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I do think there's some really, really cool moments on there. I mean, that's the other thing too, is that like, why should I, as the guy who arguably helped it or hurt it, decide whether it's a good record or not? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Well, no, and they all trusted you with like, and we're listening back to the mixes and we're down with it. Like, that didn't mean to be like a grilled like, man, you really screwed up that mix, Jonathan. Like,
oh yeah, you know, and that's my own insecurity speaking, man. I mean, clearly, like some people like it, you know, like so it worked. Yeah, you know.
Well, they liked it.
Yeah,
that was if you're in the nerd shit too, man. Somewhere in that process, I got some NS10 speakers. And that was like the first time I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like be serious like the fucking rock guys, you know, and have some NS10s and go for that thing. And like, you know, referencing, you know, David Bendith records and like Chris Lord and, you know, just like all that kind of shit, you know. Having, you know, starting with the NS10s and just like learning to like listen quiet and balance. Like, so I was like learning a lot while I was making that record as well. You know, it was like a tremendous experience for me. It was also a tremendous, you know, kind of like learning experience working with those guys who were like, you know, like seriously into like, you know, like older, like, you know, hardcore and stuff like that. I remember bringing up like, what's the Beyonce and Lady Gaga Telephone song? And I was like, have you guys seen this shit? Like, I was like, and I played the video for him. And I was like, I was looking at the video. I was loving it. And Chris comes over and he's like, Jonathan, these guys are going to kill you if you don't cut that off. And it was like, and he's exaggerating, and that's like a funny moment, you know what I'm saying? But it was just like realizing that like not everybody's really into the same shit, you know. I think one of the closest points of reference that I had with them that we both were like, fuck yeah, was like Sonic Youth, Dirty or something. You know what I mean? Like,
but see, that's why I feel like you and I connected.
Yeah.
So early on, like, because I too have a very like, I don't know, I always reference it as like a pop sensibility, but it's really just like, I like fucking good music. Like, these guys know that any chance that I get, I will bring up Kesha and how incredible Kesha is.
Fuck yeah.
I specifically remember us having a conversation on the Handjob tour about Kesha. And just like kind of marveling at that record, like that first big record of hers.
Yeah, dude, the Your Love Isn't My Drug or whatever. That was the first time hearing that riser, and it gets so pointed. You're like a fucking dog. You know what I'm talking about? You're like you have to turn.
But then the big thing is like it has that, but then it also has TikTok on it, and you're just like you have a record with just so many hits on it. Yeah, we just like. Kesha's just fucking great, and I just love that like I don't know, I feel like we connected with that, like just good shit's just good shit, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, regardless of like whether it's a genre that you particularly enjoy or not, like I feel like we can, appreciate technical skill, whether from a production standpoint or a musical standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I would like to take this moment to embarrass Kylan for just a second, if I can.
Please do.
Okay. It's unrelated. So back in the day when you used to play a lot, you would just like sometimes just say really random things and then like jump into a song. And
I was
had
really
like a
bad
list
at like
in my head.
on stage banter.
Yes, you kind of were. I think you've gotten a lot better
it's
about
tough.
it. It is tough. I've never had to do it as someone who's just like a back guy, like a guitarist or bassist. I never have to do it, so it's easy for me to like poke fun. But one time, Kylan was playing at some coffee shop or something like that, and you're doing your pop medley, and you're like talking about Kesha, and you're like, "Oh man, I love Kesha. Her love is my drug. Also, cocaine." And then you just like start the song, and I'm like, "Whoa!" Like,
Oh my god, dude!
I know that's not true, but people here,
no one-
Especially
not-
in that context, it was probably like
Here's the no. Here's
Well,
the thing
now
that's
we're
even
leaving.
worse. I remember that show.
Yes.
The thing is, that show was at a Hot Topic.
I think you said a different
Yeah.
thing at a Hot Topic. You said something about like coming over and talking to you about dragons at a Hot Topic one time.
Oh yeah, no. You're right. The Hot Topic
This
show
was at
was
the
about
Generator show.
The
in
Generator.
Like, yeah. When you
God.
did Her Love Is My Drug.
played a lot of shows.
Also,
Kylan.
cocaine.
I used to-
And here's
yeah.
the song.
Well, for all the listeners
great.
out there, I don't do cocaine. I know sometimes it might seem like it. I did it one time at a gay cowboy bar, and never again.
Do you
Never again.
want to unpack that? Do you, can we
No, I'm good.
talk about? Okay.
We'll save that for the Patreon.
Yeah, Jonathan, you're the one we're interviewing tonight.
Whoa.
We'll flip it on Kylan next time, and you can ask him all
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
To get us back on track, I want to give a
Please,
shout out to
please.
Alexander Hoagland, who sent that question in. So shout out to you, Alexander, for that.
Was it a question or was it a complaint?
I think it was. He was just asking about.
Hey,
like,
hey, can I address it one more? You might want to edit this out. I don't know. Let me address this point. I can't remember if were we looking at forums or Facebook still? I don't know, because that was a while back. You know what I mean? Like, but in what form? But I do remember saying some shit about autotune on there. Just so you know, there is not a lick of autotune on there. Whatever it's worth.
All right, there you have it, listeners.
I listened to it a couple times this last week, and there's only one part. It's in Rescue Trained, the second song, where it's like got some effect going on his voice, and I couldn't figure out what it is. If it's like a flanger or like some, it's like got like a LFO kind of thing going on it. So I was like, that's like the only thing that I could pinpoint. Be like, maybe that's what it is. But it was only on that one song that I could hear.
Yeah.
So.
Well, also whatever it's worth, man, I still get like that is a reoccurring theme for me in artists, man. Oh, there's a lot of artists that I'm like they're just like they won't want their voice that affected. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, well, it worked for John Lennon, it worked for Kurt Cobain, it worked for I'm like, I hear brand new Nas X sounding affected as fuck. Like, okay, fine,
Yeah.
you don't want to hit, go fuck yourself. Like I don't know what to tell you. I know it's polarizing though within that genre and that culture. They want real shit. So probably even having just like a delay throw is probably like,
Too
like
much.
they fucking yeah. Which is. Yeah, I mean, so maybe I fucked that up. That's what I was saying. Like I
No,
get
you
it,
didn't, dude. You didn't.
No, definitely not.
Because that, like, Penny Black was the first Further Seems Forever record that I loved since The Moon Is Down. So
Nice. Well, that's good to hear, man.
It's the one I've listened to the most. I'm not a big Further fan,
Yeah.
but I've definitely listened to Penny Black the most out of all of them. So.
you got some
Yeah.
fans here.
Oh,
for
thanks.
sure.
Also, one interesting side note. So in that time, I told you that we had started with that "I'm in Love with the Girl," and maybe there's a couple other covers. So Benjamin Hamola, he's in Group Love now, but he was the drummer on that stuff and some other records, which I assume you're getting to. But he was around at that time too, and so there was a lot of times where I was mixing that record, and it was just Ben in the back, and Ben would like fucking give me, he's like, yeah, that sounds right, that sounds good, I just kind of like leaning on him, you know what I mean? Like sometimes, see what he thought about something. And he's a recording nerd, man. He's a synth nerd. He's got modular shit and plays drums and he sings, writes, programs. He's, we're all the same, man. That's the thing, is that we really all do all the things, It's like, at what capacity do you find yourself, in the assembly line, maybe?
He plays drums for Group Love?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Ben.
I love Group Love.
Yeah, dude.
They're so good.
Do you?
Yeah.
There's so much group love for Group Love.
There's a lot of TJ love, at least, for Group Love.
Hey, Jammers, this is Josh in the edit, just jumping in. Wanted to give you a heads up that we're about to get into some technical territory involving some music production, plugins, instruments. So if you're not into that, feel free to skip ahead for the next 7 to 8 minutes. Otherwise, you can maybe just let the numbers and letters wash over you. But if you are into that, we hope you enjoy it.
As a podcast for music nerds by music nerds,
Yeah.
I have a question, and you can answer this kind of however you want. But like, I want to talk about rigs and or chains right now. So you know, you're composing a lot of music, you're writing a lot of music, producing and stuff. I want to know, and this can be for any instrument, you know, guitar, bass, or even like vocal chain and stuff. What is your current favorite like setup? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm in Ableton. Once something's recorded, no matter how it got there, that's what I'm assuming you're talking about, plug-in chains,
Right.
yeah?
Yeah, that or like I said, or
Okay.
if there's like...
Well, we can start with the in the box, and then we can start with maybe
Cool.
on the way in what we do.
Perfect.
But like in the box, like one of the main things that I'm doing right now is I'm in Ableton. I like that stock Ableton 8 EQ.
Yeah.
If you're in Ableton
the
11,
stock one, all right.
you have the option to, when you right click on some of those plugins, you can save as default. You know, it's like real easy. Making everything default is so much easier now. But I have that, and I probably have that high passed at maybe like 40. You know, just like it comes on, it's high passed at 40. It's also maybe low passed at like 18. You know what I mean? Just kind of like anything wildly high or low. It's kind of out of there. And then, you know, on a lot of stuff, I like a lot of Waves plugins, to be honest, man. I've just used them a long time, and I'd rather kind of just get good at one thing than, you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
You know, it is. And then sometimes too, man, there's just like the aesthetic of some things. There's some plugins people are like, "Oh, you should try this," and I'm like, "Fuck no!"
It just
Have you
looks
seen that
ugly.
thing?
Yeah.
Like I don't give a shit what it does. You know, like sorry,
hurts my eyes.
You know, yeah.
As someone who shouldn't care about aesthetics, they do play a bigger part than I would like to admit in some of the things I do as well.
Yeah, and just even it might look cool, but the user interface is just like it's just hard to like where is
Not
everything?
intuitive.
You know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
yeah, and if I gotta like hunt around more than like a few, I'm just like fuck this, you know, like it just dump it, you know. But anyway, so I like a lot of the Wave stuff just because I know it, but maybe like the Puig Child, the 660, I feel like that thing works, you know, great on vocals and bass. A lot of other stuff, but I like the CLA 76 plugin. I tried the 2A and the 3A. I don't find myself using those plugins as much. You know what I mean? That's not to say they sound bad. I just don't really, you know, I have a pretty narrow window of stuff I use. But anyway, maybe something like, you know, that EQ, you know, first, and then maybe like, you know, the Puig Child or an 1176, whichever seems, you know, the Puig Child is like slower and softer, you know, and then
Right.
76 is more aggressive, right? And then I like the Puig Tech, you know, the EQ P1A, whatever. And I kind of like the simplicity of that. Like, you know, on the high band, you know, you could do, 3, 5, 8, 12, 16, you know. I kind of like the idea of just like thinking like, okay, shit that's bright, I kind of maybe do 12 and maybe mess with the EQ, but you know, like you do 12 and then something low, you know, just like go ahead and just like let the plug-in in a way. I know this sounds so lame, but you know what I mean? It kind of does some work
Right.
for you if you stop
Right.
fucking around every little bit into everything, you know?
Yeah.
And then the Waves SSL channel strip. I think that's a great one, man. And you guys probably, if you already have the old one, it's probably a free upgrade for a lot of you. But
That's good to know.
but I think that one's great. You can do the little clipping where it clips the mic line. I think that's a great way of like taming just little tiny peaks and just a tiny bit of saturation. Filters on it sound great. And then I'm almost always like on it. I do like 2-to-1 usually on almost everything compression, but maybe vary the threshold of how much it's getting compressed rather than a higher ratio.
Right.
Maybe at the end of that, something like a L2, just to, you know, to make sure you can get it, you know, because that's the thing too, man. It's like, you know, everything's got to be so. It's not like you say compressed, like the artifact of compression. It just needs to be kind of limited in how much it moves,
Right.
you know, or it's that's like kind of a typical chain of something for me. I mean, just like a for nothing. I don't know. Does that answer the question? I can't tell.
No, that's fucking great. I think we will have to put a little bit of a disclaimer for some of our listeners that aren't super music nerds.
And the other group
Yeah.
will love this.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
like
good.
I was
We'll
just,
be
I was
taking
like,
notes.
yeah, Josh and I are just like over here, like,
okay.
like writing notes.
Got
Yeah,
it.
that's so good. Yeah, that was fucking great. What's your favorite instrument you have right now? Just right now, like don't overthink it. Just what's your like?
Oh, the
Like, what's your
OB6,
favorite?
man. The Dave Smith OB6 synthesizer.
Hell yeah, dude.
I had one, and it kind of, you know how it is, man. We're making music and we're making money, but we get paid way different than everybody else in the world, you know, and both in amount and frequency, you know.
Right.
And so I had to let it go one time, man. It was just like it's just one of those things. Like, sorry, you got to go. And so I got a second one. So I'm on my second OB6, and I love it.
Nice.
I got some of the J3PO patches in it. I love it, man. It's like I try to play Jump almost every day when I fucking come in here.
I mean, if that doesn't get you pumped up, I don't know what would.
Yeah. But, additionally, like, this other shit that I'm freaking out about is, like, I got one of those Squire bass 6s, you know what I mean? The VI, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. I saw you playing one of those.
Dude, yeah, that thing is a monster, man. Like, just through, like, a big muff or anything like that. It's so fun. I got a Dan Electro 12-string, so I can be fake Jimmy Page, you know?
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Those are a couple, man. You want to know a good mic that's actually, it's kind of expensive if you're like a home studio guy, but I feel like it has actually made a huge difference, is I have the Warm Audio C8000. It's like supposed to be like the Sony copy. For a Warm Audio mic, I mean, it's $1,200. It's kind of expensive. But I tell you what, man, I have that going through LA610. I'm compressing on the way in. And a lot of vocals are damn near done at that point. I mean, it's just like maybe a little bit of EQ and limiting. But it's like, it is very much that kind of like Drake, Kanye, Justin Bieber, that super polished, kind of bright pop sound. Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. Josh is going to run out and buy that right now.
Yeah. I'm just going to add to my sweet
Well, let me tell you
cart.
this. Dude, I got one, it arrived, and the jewel light didn't turn on. So it worked, but I was like, I kind of want the light to work. If it's branded,
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, if you're paying that much, it's like...
Yeah, and then so I got another one, and that died actually like 3 months after that. So I'm on my third one in maybe 5 months or something like that. But still, I'm just like, I cannot just, it's dispute how good it sounds and how just kind of, I don't know, modern and pop and finish, it really helps things sound.
Yeah. That's good to know. I know what I'm asking for Christmas.
Uh-huh.
I love all this music shit. I love the tech shit. Whatever you guys want to ask, man.
Yeah. No, we're here
I'm
for
just
it,
hanging
too.
out with my friend I haven't talked to in forever.
it's your oyster, man.
It's Kylan.
guys-
Kylan did it.
You
Can I
guys
talk about Colin for 1 second and talking about some of his live shows?
Please.
Just the fact that he would do like Paper Planes and he'd go pew pew.
Oh, I remember that.
Like, I just love that, and I love that. Like, you're fearless. You might sound like you have no idea what banter is, but that is not the case. You're so good at it. It's so entertaining and fearless. You are absolutely fearless, man. And like, I don't know, man. I've always looked up to you. You know, to be honest, man. I just like you've made a big impact on me too, man.
This is really
Yeah.
sweet.
That feels really sweet. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to take compliments.
Say thank you.
Yeah, just take it.
Oh man, thanks. Fuck you. Like I don't know what to do.
I feel like that's a pretty good summation of y'all's relationship.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get back to being professional.
Okay.
Someone
Back to being
asked a question. TJ, you had a question.
So this is a little bit of a detour, both for our like podcast concept and for like what's relevant in interviewing Jonathan Clark, but it does fit with our spooky month theme. So
Ooh.
I gotta know, Jonathan, have you ever witnessed something? Maybe it's at a studio or something late one night. Have you ever witnessed something that you could not explain? It could be a ghost. It could be a bump in the night. It could be some lights in the sky. It could be
Chris Carrabba not hitting a right note.
yeah, him just like biffing a take, and you're like, this is otherworldly. Have you ever experienced something that you couldn't explain that was maybe unsettling?
I'll tell you what. I would have to say that this is I am a superstitious person, and I do believe that there's some like whatever your sixth sense or you know what I'm saying, like your third eye or whatever, like all that. Like, all that's got to be real on some level. And it's probably all survival instinct, That's what it is. But frequently, I'm pretty sure I'm like, okay, somebody just walked behind me. You know what I mean? Ooh. And it has not helped. Like we live in Franklin, and this is like a Civil War town. You know what I mean? There's like Civil War stuff everywhere.
Franklin's like a spooky town, right?
Yeah,
it is, man. And so, and you know, anything that's like a grave site, it becomes like a part of the historical catalog, or you know what I mean? Like you just can't mess with it, you know. And so, in my neighborhood, we have one. We have like, and I swear to God, if I lived at that house next door to it, I don't know about what those guys do. But anyway, there's like a little grave area, man. And I'm like, sometimes I'm outside, and like I might be a little sauced or whatever, but like I'm sitting outside and looking at my phone, maybe having a smoke or something, and I just have to be like, not now, guys, not now. Like, I'm not in the mood for this shit. Like you guys have to leave. You know what I mean? And it's just like this feeling of like watching. You know what I mean? No malicious intent, but also just sort of like
just a bunch of spooky pervs.
I just don't want to get into this. You know what I mean? Like, so frequently tell me that. And then,
so it's like,
that's great.
There's a cemetery not far from your house. That's what you're saying.
Oh, there's multiple cemeteries.
And you get
like,
some
there's literally
energy off of it. Like you can sense some kind of spooky vibes. They're paying attention to you.
But then I also have and then what do you call it? What's it, like Draw to the Void or something like that? Part of me's like,
that's another good album
with this. Yeah, and then put it on the whiteboard.
That's two. And then write it down.
The other part of me is like, okay, I'm scared, but I fully kind of want to fuck with this. You know what I mean? Like let's go, guys. You know. Mm-hmm. But as far as the I tell you what, I did go to. This is early. This is before I was married, and this was early in my Christian experience. But the Morning Star Church. You know what I'm talking about?
No,
not familiar.
Okay, it might as well be the Grateful Dead with the church. It just has that feel. It's very, very hippie, very non-denom.
Nice.
Big into like prophecy and like all that. And I went up there, and I've had there was another home group I went to, and somewhere else where I've absolutely had my mail read, man. Like there's no doubt that there is something else going on, and like. You almost want to think like, man, did I fall for like some swindler's trick or something? You know, talking about some sort of like, you know what I mean? Like a matchstick man or something,
Right.
But I fully believe that there's some other thing going on. I don't know what it is, and I don't know, like the idea of calling it like, it's almost like calling it ghosts is almost as reductive as calling it like, Jesus. You know what I mean? In that sense, it's like.
Because it's so mysterious and so out of your like ability to comprehend that putting a word on it is cheapening it a little bit.
Yeah, it really is, man. Like, and it's kind of tough because, you when you feel it, you know what I mean? Like, just like a good song, it's like you'd like to think you didn't want to like that Kesha record, but you couldn't help it. You just could not help yourself, like, so there's stuff like that.
I like it. I loved it.
There was a lot there.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that's great. We're gonna cut it all out, but it was good.
We'll play that.
My questions are bad, Jonathan. It's fine.
No, we're saving.
No, it's good. I love it.
Drop.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, that was a good question, TJ. We should have done that with Chelsea and Kelly.
Just trying to make
all of our
really good.
Here, let me give you the right take. You ask about has something ever happened, and I just go, man, I'm superstitious as fuck, dude. I don't know what to tell you. Cut.
That's the sound clip. Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
That's
it.
Probably draw them in. Sweet.
I love it.
I do have. If we can change it a little bit.
Josh doesn't like spooky shit, so
I'm too scared, guys.
He's too scared. We're gonna move back to music.
I do want to move back to music. After that, then we can go wherever we want. I just want to say my piece and like get some answers and stuff, and just talk about the Twin Forks thing that you were doing, because I was on board pretty early with that. Whenever Chris was doing that, like I remember whenever they dropped like that EP on Noise Trade or whatever, and I was listening to that all the time, and it was like cool because like you mixed that Truth About Movie Stars via Maurice record, so it was like the guy that mixed our record is playing bass for Chris Carrabba now. That was like a super cool thing that was going on. So I was like, I want to just hear a little bit, like you can go into as much as you want, or like stories of like how that went from like you doing the Further record into like being like, yeah, I'm touring with Chris playing his new folk band kind of thing. And
Twin Forks was rad.
However much you want to get into that. It was rad. It was great.
Yeah, so I think that in doing the Covered in the Flood record, which is a bunch of covers and a lot of folk styling in that, and a lot of Chris's influences, he was getting into like, John Prine and a bunch of, just like, just kind of like Americana and shit. And
Also, just real quick, how fucking great was John Prine?
Incredible.
Like how he just like, he could write silly songs, he could write serious songs. He was just like,
And both at the same time.
yes.
yeah, I admire that. It's like the ability to like not take yourself so damn seriously, and like, but there is seriousness in that.
But you still say
you know
something.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's flex. You know what I mean? It's like you're showing up, man, showing off. Yeah, it's yeah. So Chris was getting into a lot of that stuff, and clearly as a writer, I mean, he'd been in like Dylan and stuff like that, and we both had a thing. It's a weird one, man. Like not everybody likes this, but like when you bring up like, hey man, do you like Neil Young? You know what I mean? Like that's a polarizing figure. You know what I mean? But we both like some Neil Young stuff, and so there was a lot of that. And I'd been getting into like a lot of like Tony Rice and Bill Monroe and stuff like that, bluegrass stuff. Yeah. And so all that kind of being together, it was like, and then like I said, doing all those covers, he just started writing some tunes like in that feel, like in that world, and then just it was me, him, and Ben. And Chris was experimenting. I mean, he's always been like an open tuning guy, clearly, but like he was like maybe in more kind of like traditional open tunings, like that weren't maybe like low, right?
Yeah.
He's really big into like a blonde Gibson. What is it? LG2? It's a small body Gibson from the '60s, LG series, and had a couple of those, and also a couple small bodied Martins. The is it the 00? 00, what I'm talking about? It's the smaller, it's the power stuff. I get so confused with so many numbers. It's like all the gear we work with is just like an endless string of numbers.
Yeah. No, we were just talking about that while you were gone. It was like some parts of this episode, like just let the numbers and letters just wash over you.
It's okay if we don't get them all straight. It's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's like what I'm talking about. The little one, the big one, like whatever.
They should have called it that instead.
Yeah. The Martin Little one.
Here's the little Martin.
It is, yeah. And which famously, like small acoustics and small amplifiers record well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Brian May from Queen had an interesting thought process about the small. Said that when the speaker is smaller, the ratio of the speaker to the diaphragm of the microphone is more similar, and the microphone can pick it up in a more, like, what I'm saying, like an accurate way. Like, yeah. And I mean, who knows? But also, that guy was supposed to be an astrophysicist.
Right. He's also, like,
he's
an astrophysicist, so he might know.
Yeah. But anyway, like all those influences were floating around, and we were playing like a lot of guitar together, just acoustic stuff, and working on ideas. And Ben was around all the time, and so we were working up these songs together, and Ben is like a traditional kind of like rock guy. I mean, I think if you went back a few years on the internet, you'd see him with like the fucking white rimmed D drums or fucking you know what I'm saying, like the full on, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
But that dude is a monster. Like he is a monster on the drum kit. Like it's just unbelievable, man, how good that guy is. And then also too, like how like varied his influence and stuff is. I mean, he brought so much to that. But we're all kind of like experimenting with like, how do you take this folk thing but more or less make pop songs, right?
Right.
And so, working on that, and a lot of it even too when we were in the live room, we did play in the live room and practice together and work on some of those songs, and that's not something that is done frequently, and it's certainly not something that I do a lot.
Right.
I've done one song with somebody else in the room like this year. You know what I mean? Like that's it. Like everything else is track by track, right? And so working on those songs, Ben was he was kind of big into the moment, man. The brushes, but they're more like the plastic, and they almost look like spaghetti curled brushes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Not like the corn stick, but the same size.
Not the hot rods, but the yeah.
Yeah, it's like a finer. It's a bigger bundle and finer, insides. And was using a lot of those, like like timpani type mallets, stuff like that. Drum head on top of the drum. You know what I mean? Just like which is. Before big fat snare drum, which is kind of what that is, right? Just another head cut out on top of a head. Chris had a white Rogers drum set over there. We used that some. That actually was a trade from Matt Reed. I don't know if anybody gives a shit about this.
We do. That's the whole point of the show.
It's like a 60s Rogers 20-inch kick. You hear a lot of that on there. At some point, he got another that was like 22, 14, 16 CNC. He played that for a while. The gold sparkle looks a lot like a Bonham kit. And there's some, other drums and stuff like that. Lots of percussion and stuff that we added. 24. Am I going in the right direction with this? Is this the kind of shit you want to know?
Yeah. So were you doing the same kind of role of like engineering and producing, or were you co-producing with Chris kind of thing for that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely engineered the whole record, produced the whole record. The one you saw that came out 5 songs, I mixed that one. Later, Brian Russell, he mixed that. Brian has credits with Coldplay and shit. He's dope, man. He's here in Nashville, and his wife Susie is actually Susie on that record. And she was Susie Zeldin at the time, but then is Susie Russell. And from what's the name of her band, man? The Narrative is her band. So it like early on, because Ben was in Bad Books.
Oh, with Kevin Devine and
exactly.
Andy Hull. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. Who is? Hold on, we're talking about Sweet Sweet Bass. I am spacing on his name, and I'll hate myself forever. Who played bass in that band?
Andy Prince.
Prince. That's the baddest motherfucker on the planet, dude. That guy is so fucking good, dude. Prince is so good. And Prince can ollie waist high. He can also skateboard really well. Like, it's not fair. But yeah, Prince is, man, he's so fucking cool, man. Anyway, but yeah, I remember some of the early online, they're like, it's like some like fucking super group. And I was like, well, I'm in here too. It can't be that damn super.
This is when you just pat yourself on the back, Jonathan. That's right. That's right. I'm super.
But we worked on those songs, man, for a while, and I would say it's actually a pretty like organic experience. Susie was in New York at the time, so she would like either send us vocals, or there's a couple times she came down to sing. But the bones of the rhythm tracks was us three. I think Gibson sent Chris a banjo. I want to say that's what it was. And but dude, like full on like resonator, like I mean, like a real banjo, you sit in your lap, dude. Pretty soon you can't feel your nuts, dude. It just cuts off the circulation and everything. It's so heavy, And so, both of us were just like trying to figure that out. And it's kind of funny because like, we both like the open tuning stuff, and it's just fun to figure it out. And then got a mandolin, and then got another mandolin. That's another one too, man. It's like you got. I mean, the mandolin is just like so finicky about the tuning, man. And it's like such like a vocal range. You just kind of got to get serious with it. That can be such a pain sometimes to get the right thing, especially when you're playing like we're both playing it like guitar players. So we're like this, what I'm saying? Like, so the intonation like is, it's versus real players they move this way, right? Anyway. No, but that was recorded at Chris's. I think for the drums at the time, we had some Chameleon Labs, small diaphragm condensers. We used those on top of the drums and on the acoustic guitar. I was starting to experiment with the acoustic guitar miking on that, like Eric Valentine talks about, you know what I'm talking about? Where you're playing the guitar, and so instead of the mics being stereo this way, they're stereo this way. So it's almost like a piano. So you got the bass in the left, right, and the treble in the right as you strum. So theoretically, as you strum, it should go across the speaker, right?
Left to right.
As opposed to just being a stereo picture of an instrument in front of you, And that's so cool. We're experimenting a lot with that, and especially too because a lot of the parts that Chris was coming up with were like like thumb, finger, thumb. It's like bass, bass, high note, that kind of thing. And so you would kind of get a little stereo. Kind of, what I'm saying, like a piano,
that's cool.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and that was usually we had like some Vintech 272s over there, and this is like all Chris's gear, man. Like he had like a really great setup over there. It's accumulated from recording at home himself, but also touring. And once they were doing a lot of those, they start playing through a lot of that stuff live. Like a lot of front of house guys, Mike Fanuel, are serious dudes, man. So we were fortunate to have that gear there. And then bass, there's like a 70s jazz bass, like the Natural Color. And that was almost always through like an Avalon U5. That's kind of the desktop looking tube DI. You know, it's a tube DI.
Right.
At some point in time in there, we didn't really buy much gear. Chris didn't really get much gear. I mean, he had so much stuff, but one thing that we brought on in there was getting a pair of distressors, and so we got those, and those kind of were able to use on drums and vocals and everything else. That's a great compressor if you guys are ever looking for an outboard compressor that does a lot of things, and they kind of seem to do everything well, in my opinion, and also aren't so crazy expensive, and there's no tubes in there, so they're not noisy, they're not going to go bad, it's solid state.
Something I am curious about, and I think I asked you this whenever I met you, like in 2014, but just so we have it on the record, but especially like talking about with Ben as like him being such like a solid player, and then you, like what I'd seen of your playing was like, I feel like you're a very like jazzy, like colorful guy, like when you're playing bass and stuff like that. But bluegrass is not really that kind of like music. Like you're playing kind of like blues scales, like or major scales, and that's kind of it. Like, what was it that like you allowed you to keep things interesting or challenging? If like you and Ben are like, Chris has the whole open tuning thing going for him, but you and Ben are like big talented players, but kind of like you're having to play like put your skill set into like the bluegrass folk kind of box. But like, what did you do to
that's such a good
keep things
question.
interesting?
I mean, first of all, to be honest, like, like if you say bluegrass, and this is like a process like we kind of all went through too, is like if you say bluegrass, like there is no drums. You know what I mean? Like there was a bluegrass jam by my house growing up. I remember, and we like had fucking tie-dye Grateful Dead shirts on and thought we were gonna bring like bongos in there, and they're like, they waved us off. Some fucking 80-year-old purple-haired bastard like waved us off. But anyway, yeah. But if you just think it's like boom, 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 like that's what you're thinking, right? You're thinking like tic tac bass, like or boom chick, yeah, that kind of thing. Like that is bluegrass, and folk maybe. Song-wise is like A, B, A form-wise. There's not like a real chorus. Or every section ends with that refrain chorus, right?
Yeah, like the turnaround. And
yeah, so we were already kind of in a different world. It was almost more like, again, like how do we do pop music, but with maybe some of that instrumentation, And nobody, it's not like we were thinking like pop music, but, but we're all songwriters and like modern songwriting. We like that, like we want a chorus to fucking bang, dude, Like that's what they do, right? Anyway, hopefully. So I don't think it was as much as like trying to like reinvent bluegrass. It was just like, how can we make this like banjo part that normally would be like so fucking twangy and just like, you know what I'm saying? Like just loud, like as a personality. Like how do we make it basically an 808 hi-hat? You know what I mean? Like how is it just like an arpeggio? It's just, you know what I mean? That's all it is. It's just like, is a banjo really different than the edge on electric guitar with delay? Like it's that kind of thing. And then also too, I mean, a big thing is like trying to incorporate melody into everything. I think that's this reoccurring theme, is that like there's nothing wrong with like whole note pads. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing wrong with that. But also, all right, well, like sing me the rhythm. You know what I mean? Like it's not as obvious to sing that. You know what I mean? Like what's actually happening. So I think we just kind of came into it with like, okay, fundamentally there's three of us. It's not about like if we're playing too much or not playing enough, but it's just sort of like, where can we fill this space in? Because like if you go back in time to like how about fucking the Jimi Hendrix Experience? You know what I mean? Like three people, and it's just like Mitch Mitchell is fucking jazz drums as fuck. Noel Redding's pissed off that he has to be there because he'd rather be in the the Faces or something. And Jimmy's just like unknowingly inventing R&B and psychedelic, and you know what I mean, like at the same time, and fucking rapping like Castles Made of Sand. You know what I mean? Like,
so what you're telling me is you're comparing yourself to Jimi Hendrix, right? That's what I'm getting from this.
Yeah, no ego problem whatsoever.
No,
I'm Noel Redding. I'm the sour fucking bass player.
You were just pissed you had to be there.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, man. I know that sounds like a rabbit trail of shit, but I think the idea was like, how do we make this interesting and kind of like, all kind of grow. And so it's not about just like, kick and brushes on snare, boochie catch, boochie catch. It's not about that. It's just like what's like a cool rhythm that also uses brushes,
Right.
Like, so that's kind of how we like approached that, I think. and we all kind of have that inner songwriter / overplayer in us that is, we're already, I hate the word dumbing it down, but we're already trying to simplify it or pull out what the best possible version of it is with each other.
Right.
And I think that was a good part about that relationship, is that everybody's already doing that work on their own. There's not some third party that has to come in and point finger. You know what I'm saying? Like, and try to,
totally. It was just like from y'all.
Yeah.
So is there ever going to be another Twin Forks record? I gotta get the scoop.
There actually is, like, literally a whole nother Twin Forks record just waiting to be, just kind of finalized.
Whoa.
And so, not long ago, Chris came over here and we were talking about that record. And, I said it was something that, like, also too, man, like, that band, that whole gig, that like just takes, a certain amount of time and it just has to go the way it goes.
Right.
And I was telling Chris, I'm like so backlogged with shit right now, like I would have to push that off. So I actually, if it's not weird to say, I was like, dude, the roughs are, the roughs are, come on. Like I'm not
right.
going to print a file and it not hopeful. Like my theory has always been like, if it gets leaked onto the internet, I won't be upset. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah,
like it's like, we're going to leave this in a place where it's pretty damn good. So there's a pretty fucking good record left. And, and so I guess we're kind of in the conversation of like, do we hand this off to somebody else? But then there's also, on that level of stuff with like labels and shit, they have like, they want to bring other people and shit in too. They want to chop shit up. They, you know what I mean? Like they just, the further down the line you go, the more it just keeps getting edited and fine tuned and all that. But yeah, there's another 12, 14 songs.
That y'all did recently?
That was stuff actually recorded a few years back.
That was still whenever like it was all still going on before you went back to doing Dashboard stuff?
Yeah, and that was another thing too, is that like, when the anniversary came around for Dashboard, it was just like, dude, come on, keep the main thing, right? Like you got to front runner that, there's like, don't get distracted by anything else, And so that was a huge part of that too.
I always feel like it's such an interesting thing to sit with a body of work for such a long time, like you're describing with this new Twin Forks material. Like,
yeah,
y'all know it exists, and you obviously feel pretty good about it, even in its unfinished state. But
yeah,
isn't it strange, like, to kind of have this quote unquote baby and it's not being birthed, but you're aware of it, like it intimately, and you're like very familiar with it. When I do that with my own music or with other music that I really love, but it's not out in the public, there's always a little angst around it.
Yeah.
Just like sitting on it kind of uncomfortably, like, when is this going to get out there? Do you experience that at all? Or are you pretty zen about it? Like, are you able to kind of just set it to the side?
Some of them I'm able to kind of like compartmentalize, but
Sure.
But in general, I think there's definitely a frustration. And if I can speak to any sort of audience that you have of, people that are younger and making records at home or trying to start, you know what I mean? Like, like independent musicians, like whatever, like anybody, if you work with somebody and then the song doesn't come out, it's a fucking bummer, like it's just, and you don't want it to die on a hard drive. You know what I mean? Like, there's songs. Man, somebody asked me the other day for a song. I was like, why didn't you put this shit out then? And it was like, and it's starting to get some traction. And it was like 4 years ago. And they're like, hey, they want stems. And I try to open the session up. And it's only 4 years, but it's long enough that like the transition of Ableton 10 to Ableton 11 using VST2 to VST3. It's like literally no plug-in. And I'm just like, it comes up. And I'm like, I have to remix this whole thing.
Dude, that happened to me recently.
Buy an older
too,
or install like an older OS and so, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, I've definitely had my share of that. So like recently, so I just came out with a new song that was just kind of like sitting on my hard drive.
Yeah.
With kind of that same intention of just like, I started going through a bunch of like old stuff I had. The main record that I want to come out with, I've been working on now for 6 years. And I'm just like, every time I open like an Ableton Live session, it's like, these plugins are all missing because they're all like the old versions. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, I don't want to go through this again. So like, I had something, I was like, just get it out. Maybe that'll inspire me to like, just push through the rest. But
yeah.
Is it working?
I feel that.
I don't know. Who knows?
Well, look, if I can give you any advice too, I think there's also feeling.
No, we're good. We're good. We're good. Thank you, though.
What do
I
you
wasn't
know,
talking to
Jonathan?
you. I was talking to
Yeah,
DJ.
I want it. I'm here for it.
That's fine.
No, so I also too in what I do, like having songs and you try to pitch them to people or pitch them to certain publishers or whatever, you get rejected. And sometimes stuff, yeah, maybe it isn't finished enough to say, you know what I mean, to be obvious to the end listener that like what kind of song this is, maybe it needs more love, whatever. But that being said, sometimes it's just not the right fit. It's an okay fit, but it's not a great fit, And I've had luck with like one publisher in particular. I'm just like, like I'm sending them shit 4 years old, like maybe sections of something pushing older, and they like it, and I'm just like, yeah, no shit, I knew it was fucking dope.
It was good.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
Like, yeah, it was fucking dope. Like
Yeah.
it was just these other fucking lame ass nerds who like, have you ever heard a Weekend record? Get the fuck, come on, like get on board, like let's go, like like let's listen to new music. Stop being such an old fuck,
Right.
Anyway, you might have to cut all that shit out, right?
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
We're
I'm
gonna
sorry.
leave that up
Do
to
we even
Josh.
talk about the curses, the swears? I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
Oh no. We're totally.
You doing tape
fine.
stops down, like like editing everyone?
Oh yeah.
Nah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Just
No,
roll.
we add a pinch harmonic every time there's a curse word. So this is gonna
Nice,
feel like
dude.
a corn record.
Yeah, or like Seinfeld bass. Okay, hey, let's talk about. You said corn. I did want to actually talk to you guys about this.
Okay. Let's
Okay,
talk.
that first record with Blind, right, and Ball Tongue and all that. Which, by the way, the fucking like in Ball Tongue, that is the hardest riff that's ever happened in the history of planet Earth. That is so good. That is the best thing. It's just, I can't get enough of that. Anyway, also too, he goes Ball Tongue. Like that's the.
I did not see
Anyway.
this segue coming. I'm here
Yeah,
for
how
it.
did we get here?
Okay, Ross Robinson produced that record.
Yes.
Fast forward a little bit, every record after that is trying to sound like that. You know what I mean? Like every like Deftones or fucking what's the mask guy, Slipknot.
Slipknot.
You know, any of that. It's like all. You know what I mean? It's just post. It's post Corn.
I think he produced Norma Jean's Redeemer too.
That's where I was going with this.
Oh.
Norma Jean Redeemer, that first one, A Small Spark in a Great Forest or whatever, and he's like, "What are you trying to say?" That is the hardest fucking song, dude. That song
love
is
that
so
song.
good. Yeah, and also too, when we talk about like things being timeless or aging well, like you listen to that right now, and that just sounds like a great rock record. Those drums,
Yeah.
maybe they have triggers, maybe they don't. Who cares? Like
It stands
they
the test
sound
of
great.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an appropriate volume. The vocal tones are great. The guitar tones are great. There's like the perfect blend of like, I mean, clearly, dude, we've been on the grid for 30 years, right? You know what I'm saying? So like, we're on the grid. That's fine. But there's this perfect, like, you can tell they left some stuff. You know what I mean? And that's just like,
Right.
engineer producer type shit. That's like, I don't think the average listener really cares about the how of that. They just care about how they feel about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's Ross Robinson, man. And it's just so funny, like how, like, I mean, that Korn record at the time, that's like the biggest record on the planet, man.
Right,
and then he does that for Norma Jean too. And I'm always curious, I'm like, whose manager called who for that? You know what I mean? Like, how did that
How'd they get
happen?
this guy?
Great question.
Yeah, And then you see Ross's studio. He's like on Malibu Beach or something, on the goddamn beach. And it's just like, okay, so who had the budget for this? Was this in the CCM budget? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but no, that record is so good, man. And
Well, maybe if you want to, we will cover that record at some point. If you want to come back on and
oh my god,
and
Yeah.
deep dive on that
Let's
record,
do it.
I'm here for it. I'm
be
here
so
for
fun.
it. We've only covered one. We covered Norma Jean's first record.
Yeah.
So far, and I hated it.
Yeah, I flopped it.
So
I mean, clearly it's like a milestone. But I do
Right.
I like Oh God, The Aftermath and Redeemer, and but that was also just the window where I could like absorb some of that. You know what I mean? Like right now,
Right.
like maybe the thing that I'm absorbing, like TJ in your back is the Alabama Shakes or
Right.
I don't know, or just still listening to fucking Prince, not Andy Prince, but Prince.
Prince.
But also Andy Prince sometimes.
Yeah. I can't tell you, man. If you like, that's another one too. Like, if any of you guys know Andy or like, hopefully gets word of this, like I've seen him play, and then I've been like backstage with him talking, and he's such like a gentle, kind person. And I think there's like something in this, like working with people. Man, I love people that can like play in time and in tune and fucking singing right, but when you have that like immediate, like that is a good person. You know what I mean? Like that sort of immediacy of that.
Yeah,
like
good rapport.
It's really special, man.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, we've been going about 2 hours, so I think we're going to start wrapping this up, if that's cool with everybody.
Yeah, I hope I didn't fuck you guys up.
No, I love
No, dude.
I love the Twin Fork stuff, and there's a new record. What?
We got the
Hey, you're
scoop.
making
That was
our
all we
day.
needed. Like, I'm actually surprised we didn't hang
stoked
up on
about
you as soon as we got that.
Do you want to come
Yeah.
over for a listening party? I can play it for you.
Yes.
Oh my
No, I'm just
gosh.
saying.
Man.
That was such a fucking. That was like such a douche move. It was like name dropping.
I
I don't
would.
think any of us would be mad about that.
No, yeah. Do a virtual listening party. We'll be there.
Well, if I can tell you, let me give you a couple more details on it. Is we
Please.
did record a little bit of that. I had. Do you remember Jake from Calvary? Kylan, Jake, one of the sound
Yeah.
guys.
Uh-huh.
Jake gave me a 15-inch MacBook Pro.
Oh, shit.
Just like he got a new one. Like remember when they went super thin? Like they stopped having drives in them, and they went super thin. And he got a new one. He's just like, whatever. He just gave it to me. He's like, like crud will use it, but I took that on the road with me, and at times I had an Apogee 1 and an Apogee duet. But I would probably say 5 songs on that record were also recorded in hotel rooms while on tour with Twin Forks.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, I want to say, this is the weirdest one because I'm almost having like a weird kind of like cross memory. I think what was happening is we were on the road, and the sound company, we were opening for Philip Phillips, and their backline company had U87s, and I was like, let me borrow one of those. So it was like the borrowed U87 into an Apogee duet or one. I can't remember which one I had. I had both. But we'd be in the hotel room, like unplug the refrigerator. You know what I mean? Like set up some blankets and stuff. And they're both listening on in-ears. And so that's, when, whatever it does come out, I mean, that's like the vocal and guitar sound you're hearing on
that's rad.
quite a few of those songs.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Whatever that's worth. If
That's
you're a
really
nerd.
cool.
Yeah, no, I think I remember seeing like videos of like that got posted like to their Facebook or something, to y'all's Facebook, that was like, oh, recording stuff in hotels, but that's like the actual record.
Yeah.
I
That's
love
awesome.
Super rad.
it. That's
Yeah.
the best.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're gonna start wrapping it up. Jonathan, why are you so fucking cool?
Thank you for thinking I'm cool, man. So I appreciate
problem.
it. I really, really do.
Yeah. No. Well, thank you so much for coming on Church Jams Now. Where can people like find you, follow you if they want to check out any of the cool shit you're talking about?
Man, to be honest, I'm on Instagram a little bit. I still have a problem with like the fucking playing the game, the fucking Instagram hustle. Like what? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, dude.
You know,
Dude, yeah, we all get it. Like we
Yeah.
all get it.
Yeah, you know what my Instagram user is? Click Limon, and that's my French, arch nemesis, alter ego, but who makes New Jack Swing and house music. But anyway,
Nice.
Man, some of the records that I've done is Click and the Melochromatics. That's on Spotify, and a lot of that shit is just like at home, satisfying my own urge, but also aimed for some TV spots. Modafaro, Modafaro. That's with Kelsey, who sang with us in Twin Forks. We did a project. There's 5 songs out there that are really good, man, and she sang that in her house at Florida, and sent me vocals, and I recorded that here. You can check those songs out.
Nice.
Isa Fernandez, dude, she's incredible. We've done a lot of stuff together in YSA. It's sounds like Isa, sounds like YSA on Instagram. She's incredible, and she'll come over and man, just like doesn't give a shit, push you out of the way, start playing fucking keyboard, play bass guitar, sing like she's a Pro Tools girl. You know what I mean? She's so good, man. Kiki Halliday, Kiki. I'm just trying to give a shout out to people that I've been working with
do it.
recently
That's what we're
that
here
I
for.
believe in. You know what I mean? That are doing it. But Kiki Halliday, she's an incredible writer, and I remember being on the phone with her the first time, just being like, oh, this person's serious. Like they're serious about their art and their music and their career trajectory and stuff. And man, she's incredible. And big homie Sean Zorn, he played drums and Twin Forks with us, man. But he's out all over the place, and he's playing with some very classic people, man. Very good musicians, and Amy Levere, and he's great to check out. I know you're asking where can you find me, but I'm just telling you people that I like that I know. And but yeah, that's about it. I don't know what else.
Cool. I mean, that's
I want to talk to you guys forever. I'm sorry you got to cut it
know.
off. Actually,
No,
I'm
it's
so
fine.
sad,
Well,
actually.
we'll stop recording, but we can keep talking. For
Is
a little
Twin
bit.
Forks active on Instagram? Are they doing stuff?
No, it's not active. And like I said, when they started touring with Dashboard back again, man, it just really just kind of, and Ben was part of Twin Forks, and Ben, he was playing with Dashboard, but then, he kind of moved over into the Group Love world. And I don't know, given time, things will align and come out the way they're going to come out, but right now everybody's kind of like doing their own thing. Talking about, Chris doing Dashboard, it's like, how do you not do that? How do you not make that the main thing? Like, that's the legacy.
Right.
That's the legacy band,
Definitely.
And, yeah. And so they're still, they're out there touring, man, and doing shit up and writing, and, he's releasing stuff, but, is that the end of that? Is this
I think that's the end.
Formal?
We got you.
That's the end. Okay, from all of us here at the CJN Crew, may all your favorite bands stay together. Peace out, my friends.
Church jams now.
We all listened to Mercy Me for like 10 fucking years because that I Can Only Imagine song. But
Yeah.
it's
Not
like, okay,
actively.
That guy came over once.
Really? Oh, we're gonna have
Yeah,
to.
he came-
We're gonna have to.
He came over. Is his name Bart? Is that
Bart,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
Bart
that's
Miller.
it.
Yeah.